In past presentations, we have described the Battle of September 11th and explored in detail the chaos that resulted. In this concluding part to Episode 3, we will recap the events and focus on the critical component of the chaos of the day, Cascading Bifurcation. The blue part of the bifurcation diagram should look familiar. That is the attack plan, as we have discussed. 2 axes of advance, each axis with 2 prongs. Such an attack is complex, designed to cause confusion in the defense, and that is exactly what happened. Each of the 4 commandeered flights became something other than a single plane, each to be flown into specific targets. To describe the bifurcations that amplified the chaos of the morning, we will discuss 3 things. We begin with the attack. Here is the basic timeline we will use, drawn to scale. As you might notice, all times are Eastern Daylight Time, but as we know from Episode 1, the attack was well underway before 8 a.m. To refresh our memory, the attack began at Portland, Maine, when Mohammed Atta and a colleague passed through security and entered the National Airspace System at 5:45. The nation remained unaware for over 2 hours that it was under attack. The first indication came at Boston Center when it lost communication with American 11 as shown. The situation escalated quickly. United 175 was commandeered at 8:42. Shortly thereafter, American 11 flew into the World Trade Center North Tower. 17 minutes later, United 175 struck the South Tower. New York Center knew by 8:53 that it had multiple problems, as we discussed in earlier episodes. By 9:03, the Northern Axis attack was over, and chaos dominated the National Airspace System in the Northeast. Unknown to everyone outside Indianapolis Center, an attack on a Southern Axis was underway. Soon after 8:50, American 77 was commandeered. Note that the spacing of the 2 strikes against the World Trade Center allowed time for the Southern attack to develop before anyone knew that American 11 flying into the North Tower was anything other than an accident. The attackers who commandeered American 77 met that 17-minute window. Those aboard United 93 did not. The takeover of United 93 missed that window of opportunity by nearly a half hour. That failure was due entirely to the delay in takeoff at Newark by United 93. As shown, United 93 was commandeered at 9:28. 10 minutes later, American 77 slammed into the west side of the Pentagon. Chaos now extended far beyond the Northeast, and passengers aboard United 93 were able to gain situational awareness, the only time anyone at any level gained a defensive advantage. Passengers and remaining crew forced United 93 to plummet to Earth at 10:03. The attack was over. An ambitious, well-planned, and well-executed attack on 2 axes overwhelmed the National Airspace System. We turn now to take a look at the national defense that morning. For reference, the basic attack timeline is shown. Using the same timescale, the national defense began at 9:16, when the CIA initiated a Neuwan call among the watch centers in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Neuwan is not a decision-level network. Its primary purpose is to instantly connect 24-hour watch centers to discuss things that go bump in the night. It is primarily an analyst-level network. The irony is that it connected everyone together electronically to include FAA. CIA did not call to pass along information or intelligence. The agency was simply trying to find out what was going on given the events in New York City. Soon thereafter at 9:20, FAA activated its primary net, one of two nets FAA uses in significant events. That was FAA's external net. The other was an internal tactical net. The primary net never became operational and was quickly subsumed into the tactical net. Ironically, the primary net did connect FAA and the Pentagon. That link stayed open, but was never used. By 9:40, two federal nets were established. The Pentagon struggled to activate a net that would include FAA. An initial significant event conference quickly gave way to an air threat conference, which was convened on the east side of the Pentagon as the American 77 was exploding into the west side of the building. It was well after 10 before FAA was connected, and only then not at a decision-making level. Concurrently, Richard Clark was establishing a secure video conference call, SVTS. That system was activated at 9:28 and became operational at 9:40. It did include the Pentagon and FAA. These competing conferences ensured that national-level attention would be divided and at odds. All those national-level actions, NOI-1, Primary Net, Air Threat Conference, SVTS, was in time to take advantage of the one time that bits and pieces of electronic information were available. At 9:10, information existed to offer some protection to the nation's capital. No policy, procedure, or mechanism existed to take advantage. Here is what happened at 9:10. Indianapolis Center, lacking situational awareness, did not report the loss of American 77 to Herndon Center. Instead, it notified its higher headquarters, Great Lakes Region, and presumed American 77 to be lost, initiated rescue coordination procedures. For its part, the Northeast Air Defense Sector was trying to manage its scarce resources, just 4 planes as we discussed in previous parts. The sector parked the Otis fighters in a holding position south of Long Island. At their closest approach, they were 20 minutes flying time from Washington, D.C. Concurrently, Northeast Sector made a critical decision concerning the Langley Air Defense fighters. The mission crew commander recommended a scramble. He was overruled by the battle cab, and the fighters were placed on battle stations. Absent actionable information, and with scarce resources, that was a reasonable decision. Retrospectively, it was the wrong decision. Significantly, undetected by Northeast Sector technicians, a joint surveillance system radar reacquired American 77 as a target. Sector surveillance technicians would have noticed immediately if someone had told them to look. The sector, lacking any situational awareness, focused its surveillance effort on the New York and Boston areas. And that concludes the national level story. Chaos prevailed. We now turn to Cascading Bifurcation to find out why that was so. We begin with a familiar slide, the basic 2-axis, 4-prong attack. Boston Center did not hand off American 11 to New York Center. New York Center simply entered a new track into the system, American 11 Alpha. The American 11 flight plan was left in the system. American 11 Alpha itself became 2 things. It flew into the North Tower and later became reborn as a threat to the nation's capital. United 175 became 2 things. It had morphed into code 3321, a fast mover that flew into the South Tower. Its flight plan remained in the system, and its whereabouts became unknown. American 77 became multiple things. It was presumed lost and downed, crashed. Its flight plan also remained in the system, and controllers were looking for it to the west. At around 9:32, Tracon picked it up as a fast mover that threatened the White House. Instead, it flew into the Pentagon. United 93 became several things. Cleveland Center entered a new flight plan into the system with destination Washington, D.C. It did this to help Washington Center. Different from the other three commandeered aircraft, its original flight plan was deleted. At 10:03, it plummeted to Earth near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The national level, however, considered it a threat because the flight plan remained and was updated in a traffic display system. In the aftermath, Northeast Air Defense Sector, in its recall of events, conflated United 93 with Delta 1989. That added to the confusion, and the government attempted to put together its own account in the aftermath. That failed on multiple levels, and it remained for the 9/11 Commission to sort things out. All that cascading bifurcation allows us to depict some of the disruptive feedback that created the fog of war that morning. American 11 and American 77 were conflated and became a threat that caused the National Command Authority to divert the president to Louisiana. United 93 became a ghost that also threatened the nation's capital. In the sky, its track intertwined with Delta 1989, so that air traffic controllers had to vector Delta 1989 out of the way. Northeast Sector established a track on Delta 1989, watched it, and in the aftermath decided they were watching United 93. To conclude, let's take a side-by-side look at the attack and the national level defense. And that is the story of what happened on September 11th. The complexity of the attack depicted on the left caused the chaos, the cascading bifurcation depicted on the right. There will be a test. The nature of the Battle of September 11th has now been established. In Episode 4, we will take the military historian's view and discuss the principles of war. Such principles have been around for centuries, and military students at all levels have studied significant battles using them. September 11th will be one such significant battle. We will get that discussion started with one version of the principles, Moss, sometimes reordered to be Moosmus. Either way, stay tuned for a different look at the events of September 11th, 2001.